That's good. It's good to have Alex here. So what I was saying before is we went to Rockwater to just check it out, and it looked like a nice place for expensive drinks. And I was having a conversation actually with my wife yesterday around this whole idea of about money. And she says one of the things that has rubbed off from me onto her, because she's from up north, and so she doesn't want to spend her money too freely. Rightly or wrongly, I've got her comfortable with paying like 20 quid for a gin and tonic.
So did you weigh up the pros and cons of that?
And it was like, because like the thing is like, oh my god, it's ridiculous to spend that much money for a drink. And I said, but look at the view. What a lovely service. We're sat at a table. We got lovely nuts. We don't have to worry about it. You know, the experience is amazing. And it's like, would I trade that in to get like a £2.50 can from Sainsbury's and sit on a rocky, I don't know, uncomfortable brick wall?
Yeah.
Just because of the drink. And it was that, I think I'm not paying for the drink.
Mm-hmm.
That is what I'm not buying that. And this whole thing, how much does it cost to run the bar, and how much does it cost? It can't be that expensive. Yeah, no, but I want to be here. Yeah. I like the view.
Yeah, good feelings.
Yeah, good feelings. Exactly, it's good feelings, and that's I think that I'm starting to see everything now through that lens. Yeah. It's like even when I'm buying something, like yes, it's expensive, but is it worth what I want from it?
Yeah, exactly, and that's the thing. Like say, there's all those good feelings which are associated with that, and there are other things too, because there is about the kind of connection. So there's connection to other people who are there, being part of that kind of sort of group in that kind of location.
Yeah,
all of those things also talk to underlying needs and underlying kind of problems that we want solving.
Yeah,
so everything comes back to that. The
exactly. Whole world, and it is. That whole value is in the eye of the beholder, and if we assume too much about what it is people are buying, then Anyway, how are you?
I'm good. So I have sunburnt feet because I'm a middle-aged English man, and that's what I have to do. But no, I'm good and well.
Good. Your audio is sounding not as great as usual. I mean, I'm wondering if your microphone settings are on your computer rather than your mic. And while you check that out, hello everyone who's watching. It'd be nice for you to get a hello from you in the chat. If you'd like to say, what's the weather like where you are? Because in Brighton and Hove, it is gloriously sunny. Is it sunny where you are if you're in the UK? If not, maybe share. Is it rainy instead, or cloudy, or whatever? Hi, Michelle. Thank you very much. Great to have you on board this morning. We are the topic of today is the idea of pricing and community. Michelle's in Hove as well. Excellent. We are enjoying the sun together. I hope you've been down to the beach over the weekend, or the bank holiday weekend in the UK, enjoying the sun and crowds and getting COVID anxiety. It's curious how it's like walking amongst lots of people. It's like, is this okay? Is this right? But on that note, we're going to be talking about pricing and community. So thinking about it was because a few people who joined our Happy Pricing course have been running online communities, and so there's been questions around how do you apply some of the things that we talk about on the course, which work. I think they feel like they could work really well when you are selling services, particularly high ticket items, and you're talking one-to-one with a customer and essentially working at that level. So I thought we could explore some of these principles when it comes to pricing something like a membership-based community where your customers are paying a subscription. And at some level, a lot of what we're going to talk about probably will apply to selling products, because it is about selling lots of stuff. So that's what we'll be talking about this morning. If you have any questions, please put them into the chat. We'd love to basically riff off your questions, because that's also means that we don't have to think too much about what to say next. Just
So
answer
more
questions.
questions, the better.
All questions go there. We'll just stick them in the chat, and we'll be happy to talk around them. But yes, how was your mic? Did you
Well, is this any better?
It sounds the same, so maybe it's just me.
I know. I fear it might have been the thing that it wasn't connected properly when we went live. So is it basically not doing it properly?
All right. So it doesn't recognize the mic on the Crowdcast. No worries. Selaviv. Yeah. I'll just if we lose listeners because of your poor audio quality,
Then
I'll just blame you.
Exactly. Flog me with a microphone.
We'll just shame you for the rest of this episode.
Very good. That's fine. I'll take it.
So yes, your weekend was spent getting your feet burned.
Well, actually, no. Just yesterday was spent getting my feet burnt. The rest of the weekend was spent getting my face burnt. But I was walking around the South Downs.
Oh yes, you did your walk. How long did it take? You went from Eastbourne, was it, or was it Hayford?
Well, we actually went from Seaford. We did about 45 kilometres.
Wow.
With quite a lot of pub stopping along the way.
Oh my gosh!
Yes.
And how was your head towards the end?
Head was sort of worn down. Legs were worn down. Everything was worn down. But it was very good. There was a group of 7 of us, old friends walking around.
Oh, that's lovely. Were there a lot of other ramblers around?
There were, and in fact, this is incredibly boring, but the train from Brighton to Seaford on Saturday morning was so full. It was the first time it had ever been anywhere. Because obviously on the beach it feels crowded, but you are outside. There was basically standing room only on the train to Lewes. So that felt like a thing from a bygone era.
Oh my gosh. That is that's going to take a lot of habituation for me anyway to get used to that kind of stuff.
Everybody looked a little bit alarmed. Well, their eyes did.
I can imagine. It's like, don't cough.
Yeah. Don't breathe. Don't look. Don't do anything. Don't know what to do.
Just turn away from. Oh no, turn away. No, I can't turn away. Face for windows. Oh gosh. Oh well. We shall see, at least in the UK, what June the 21st will bring us.
Yes.
Whether it will be renewed freedoms or renewed disappointments.
Yeah.
Well, we must be just present. So to be present, we shall talk about pricing. So one of the
presents.
Sorry.
Pricing presents.
Pricing presents. I think it is all about presents, and I think that's one of the things. Is like one of the underlying aspects I think around pricing that I think which is kind of linked to why we're doing these shows. Because that, for me, when I think about the presence, is actually being aware that when you get when you are unconsciously driven to do something, whether it's not talk about money, reduce your prices, pack your offerings with loads of features because you believe that's the thing without really tuning in or checking what is it that's really happening here. When we're driven by those we're not present to the feelings. We just let them take control. I hope that's one of the things that we can explore over the episode this season of Waking Up to Money. And I think it's actually on that. It is linked, I think, to what we're talking about today about pricing and pricing community. Because one of the aspects I think that comes up, particularly with people who are really driven to build community, who are really driven to help others, this sense of putting a price on particularly in this case the online community they're building and the online space they're hosting, because it doesn't necessarily cost a lot sometimes to host a community. The idea of charging can feel really challenging. And I'll be curious, if you are watching and you are a community builder, please put your hand up or say yes in the chat, because then we'll know we're talking to the right people. But for those who are going to be listening to the recording, I think it's one of the things to check in is like in terms of your attitude to community and paying for community, and whether there's something there about, I don't think I should pay for community. I don't know if you had any thoughts around Yeah, this aspect where you think it should be free and actually it makes sense to pay for it.
Yeah. It's interesting, as you were saying that, I remembered that I also part own an organisation which is a community, which is based on the kind of, supposed to be based on the principles of generosity on donation. So offering kind of meditation sessions. And so most of those, like I said, most of those are offered freely, right? So you can go, you don't have to pay anything. You can join every morning at 7 o'clock and there is no obligation to pay. But as a couple of the teachers saying that, and that's kind of linked to then sort of ideas of dana, generosity, in that sort of tradition of Buddhism. But as one of the sort of teachers said, that, you know, these are freely offered, but they're not without cost. And so, yes, freely offered. You can come. There is no obligation to pay, but of course, it's not without cost. None of these things are without cost. And so the kind of invitation is to help meet those costs, which is how it's spoken about in that context. Because I think there's lots of instances, aren't there, where things appear just kind of free. They are freely offered. It's a community. It's freely offered, but of course, nothing is without cost.
So in their eyes, what cost are they implying there? Are they talking truly, like costs of delivery, or is there something else more spiritual?
Actually, it's not dissimilar to what your community. The costs they're talking about there are, there's 10, 15,000 people who are in some way connected. All of those people, there's constant stream of email communication to those people. There's constant activity to find new teachers. There's costs of platform, cost of technology, costs of making a little organization run, whether it's accounting, whatever it might be. And so just, the hidden infrastructure, which makes it possible for there to be a freely offered group come 7 o'clock every morning with a teacher who is there, who is offering teaching and guidance. So it's all of the hidden cost of making the freely offered.
Yes, I see what you're saying, because it does lend itself to this idea of how you present the community.
Yeah.
Because on one, and I think this relates to the topic that we talk about on the course about being, the way I relate it anyway, to being easy to buy.
Yeah.
And so on one hand, there's this idea of the supporter model, like Patreon.
Yeah.
There isn't necessarily a transaction. What you're doing there is, I believe in what you do. I want to see more of it in the world. So I'm going to give a contribution to make sure that you stay in existence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then there's another thing, which is a bit more of a transactional approach, where I'm paying you to get something back. And it's very clear that what I'm going to pay there is based on some outcome that I want to create for myself. And so I feel there's a slightly different relationship and then some messaging around that I think is important to, it'd be interesting to discuss in terms of how that then affects how people, whether people give you money and how much they'll give you.
Yeah, so there's a few things that come up in that. The first is actually in the specific instance of Sangha Live, which is that kind of organization, there's actually both of those things are kind of going on. In some respects, what the teacher is talking to there is a little bit of the Patreon thing, which is, donate to keep me in existence, which always does feel like actually quite a hard sell to me, actually, because I think ultimately there does need to be a kind of personal kind of commitment to act. And it's like, well, why do we act? Why is it that I step over the threshold of sitting quietly on the other side of the screen? You have no idea whether I choose to kind of donate or not, and whether I do, whether I make that commitment, make that action. And actually, what they are then starting to talk to, in that community, is the importance of generosity, right? So the importance of actually, if I make a donation, if I am generous, if I am giving, actually I do get something back from that. And that's also kind of what they're talking to a little bit. So I think that's quite an important sort of distinction, because it's not just a donate to keep us, like a benevolence. donate me some money because it cost me money, therefore you're helping me out, which I think is quite a difficult. It's a bit sort of, it's lacking emotion, it's lacking feeling, I think. And if clearly, as we know, in order to act, to make a decision, the way it kind of works in our brain is the thing that precedes action is a feeling. And so I think just the pure Patreon thing, in a kind of donate me money to keep me going, it maybe is kind of short of a little bit of feeling. But then what they're kind of starting to talk to there is the importance of kind of generosity and how that actually does make you feel, and then the kind of the kind of benefit that comes from that. So that's I think there is something in that. There is a second thing which we also kind of played with in that community, which we talked to a little bit in the course in a different context. Actually, the complexity, if you're just asking somebody to donate with no references or no kind of no frame of reference, just open, like a pay what you can model, and it's just completely open. Actually, that is fraught with a whole load of sort of stress for people who are having that message kind of played to them, because people have no idea. Oh God, what's the right amount? Like I remember same sort of thing, been on sort of retreats or whatever, and at the end of the retreat, they do the same thing, Dana, which is the generosity idea, and it's kind of pay what you can, essentially. And it's like, fuck, I don't know. I have no idea what is this too much? Is this too little? And all of that kind of uncertainty, all of that sort of anxiety actually does make it harder for people to make a financial contribution. It does make it harder for people to act. And so I think that talks a little bit to the being easier to buy things. So yes, there does need to be a kind of feeling investment from that. But then there also, we do enjoy some parameters. We do enjoy some guides. We do enjoy some kind of a range of things that we can make a decision between. But just give me a blank sheet and many people will run away with it.
Yeah. Well, Michelle's just said they've tried the pay what you want approach and it didn't work well, so they provided a scale. And I think that speaks to the blank sheet and trying to decide or trying to make sense of what is a good price or what is a good figure. And I think part of that, I'm wondering, well, an aspect of that I'm curious about is how much are we able to justify that to others as well as to ourselves? So it's like, oh, I'm going to just give £5. Is that stingy? Oh, I'll give 500 quid. Is that me being a bit stupid? It's like, there's an internal story that I think we're trying to clarify for ourselves. And when that's really clear and really, solid and, we believe in, then it's easier to do. But without a benchmark, and this is what I think is interesting around community, because it is essentially in connection with people that we get a feel for what's the right figure. It's like a relationship aspect to this. Is like, oh, they pay this much, they pay that much. I'm here. This is where I pay because I'm that kind of person.
Yeah,
I would counter what you said about the feeling stuff with Patreon in terms of the way I understand Patreon, or I've seen the model of it, is particularly around creators and artists.
Yeah,
there is a relationship there, and I think this is the interesting thing about community is that when you kind of know other people there, you kind of have this real strong bond with either the leader of the community, the creator in the community, or the other people within the community. Then there is a level of feeling that kind of influences this need to just contribute some way. And speaking to this idea of how much to contribute, then it's like, I think it is the onus of the community leader or person who's managing that to then give people a clear way of how to engage and why they're engaging on what level. For instance, we have a supporter level, we have a members level. And so those are two ways to distinguish, right? One is I want to be involved and I'm taking active participation. And one is I just like what you do and I just want it to carry on. I'm not saying that's the solution, but it does make me think around when it comes to that Patreon model or that supporter model. There's a real strong need for some kind of relationship with either the creator or the people in it to
Mm.
make you feel like, I'm not, this makes sense.
Yeah.
And I'm not making, well, in my head, I'm not making a stupid decision. I'm not putting money into something that actually does not align with what I believe in.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that alignment isn't just the values. I think it's reinforced also by, and there are other people like this, like me doing this.
Yeah. Which is the ever helpful Seth Godin line. People like us do things like this.
Yeah, exactly. And I think more importantly, it's more and more important in that aspect of being a supporter rather than a customer. Is that I'm part of this group of people and we are doing this together to support this person. So yeah, that's what springs to mind. So but you had an opinion or a perspective around there's maybe a situation where there's less of that feeling or less of that connection.
Less of the connection of association, the kind of
Well, you said something about in that Patreon model, something about less feeling or something like that. There's less.
Actually, I should probably caveat. I have no idea about Patreon. So I should probably not venture too far into that that domain. I think I was actually just responding to the thing that you said, actually more about the way it was described, of I'm giving money just because I like to kind of support, to keep you going.
Yeah.
It's just I think it was more in the describing of that. Yeah. A little bit of the touch. But actually, when you were talking about it just then, I could, even in that, I could feel what the kind of feeling motivation would have been for people to do that. So yeah, there's less a sort of general thing on Patreon. Just more about the importance, I think, of at the heart of any interaction, transaction, whatever it might be. Yeah. There is a feeling, and the feeling precedes action, because that's how we kind of wander through the world. And of course, if somebody is giving money to Patreon because they like what you do, of course there is equally feeling which kind of has preceded that action too. And so I guess it's more just about understanding what's the feeling which precedes the action.
And what sprang to mind there is kind of the charity world in my perspective, and this is my limited perspective, is at some level I'm giving money to charity because of guilt. Yeah. And I want to assuage that guilt, so I'll just put that little bit of money there. It doesn't mean a lot to me, but I think it'll mean a lot to those other people. Yeah. But given there are so many charities out there, nothing's stopping me, because I'm not. The only thing that's connecting me to that charity at the moment is I set up a direct debit.
Yeah.
But nothing's stopping me from taking it from there and putting it there or putting that, because I don't have really a strong vested interest in that organization. What I'm doing is trying to get rid of some of this guilt of people need to be helped, and I've got some money I can give them. Yeah. But I think there's a level, and even just reflecting on it, there's a level of intention that's missing for me that would really say, I'm not going to. No, if someone else comes say, "I'll give us your money because we can do this," I would say, no, I'm not going to switch because I really believe in these people.
Yeah.
And so I think there's something there around the stories we tell around our communities that isn't just about the transaction.
Yeah.
But also this real kind of, I'm invested in you and somehow you're invested in me type thing.
Yeah. So I think that's, if you get to that kind of place as a community, clearly there is real strength in that symbiosis then, isn't there? That two thing, that I'm invested in you, you're invested in me, and actually together is where the strength really kind of lies. And then the value of that is very, very considerable in many respects.
Yeah. And there is you can start seeing a value in connection. And there's a real value, and particularly with a community like ours, through that sense of connection, the sense of possibility, the potential for collaboration. We not necessarily being able to say, within X number of years you will get to this point, or within X number of months you will have achieved this, but this feeling of possibility. And to some people that's really important, and to some people it isn't. And I think there's that aspect of, whether it's product pricing or community pricing, from my perspective, is that at some level you can't expect everyone to buy. And just because someone doesn't buy doesn't necessarily mean what you have to offer isn't valuable. And I think that's a challenge, I think, with a lot of, I believe, and even with us, with community builders, like we think it's amazing, but we meet someone and say, actually, I have no interest in what you have there. And
or not. I have no interest in what you have there now.
Now, exactly. Because I had someone who approached me on LinkedIn about another network. I forget, the Loop, I think it's called. Anyway, it's another community. It costs about 300 quid a year, and the idea is you get value from the deal exchanges or something like that. Anyway, there's some money in there. It sounded interesting from a model perspective, and if I had time, I would maybe look into it. But actually, I don't have time right now. I'm fully invested in my own community. I'm fully invested in my own network. While I think it's of value, I am not willing to pay that money to join it at the moment.
Yeah.
And so there is that. It isn't useful for people. It's just not useful for me right now, like you said. And so taking that on as myself, as a community builder, if I go to someone and say, do you want to join? No. Okay. It isn't like they're lost forever. It's just maybe poor timing as well.
Exactly. Because it's that thing, isn't it? The cost in that instance for you, the cost of not doing it is not yet basically greater than the cost of doing it. There's no reason to act now.
Yeah.
And different circumstances change, things change, and then my kind of reason to it is like my kind of feeling I can't not do this now because something else happens, and that's really when people act. I can't not do this now, and that's the point at which they will kind of formalize their relationship with what you do, or you with them.
And that's that's one aspect that I think is really important for people, I believe, to think about, is the timing aspect. And so staying in the game, always being around is a benefit. So we've been around 10 years now, and it's only now that I think we've started to feel the real benefits of people coming back to us like 5 years down the line saying, I want to join, or I want to do something, rather than, oh my God, none of this is going to work. It's just like there's a timing aspect. The other aspect I think that is interesting to talk about is how we talk about what we do.
Yeah.
And how we present the stuff that we do. And maybe talking to this difference between talking purely about features as opposed to outcomes. So I don't know if there's something there, and how you find out even about how do you talk about those outcomes, and what outcomes should you be talking about?
Yeah. So I guess so. In your instance, given the useful tangibility of that with the Happy Startup community, what's your feeling about the outcomes point?
Yeah, it's an evolution for us, really. It's quite, yes. Thanks for switching the tables and like putting. Whoa, right? What is the value of joining the community? I think, to be brutally honest, and this talks to it, at face value, at the start, we always thought it was about learning a program, learning some skills in order to launch your business. And while that's useful and important, I don't think that's really why a lot of people join us. I think most people join because they really align with the values. They're at a point where they are making a transition or a change, but they want to be around other people who are thinking in a similar way to them about this transition. So there is it's one of the things that a kind of a common trope in the community world is people come for the content, but they stay for the community. So at a very simple level, I think, and we're still trying to work this out, whether this is the right message. There is a level like, I want to learn certain skills to build a business that feels effortless, and I think that's the thing that gets people attracted. There's a story there that helps them clarify where they're at. But what I think really draws people in and really attracts them or makes them want to stay is then the good feelings, is the conversations they have, the ways that people look at business, the language that we use that makes them think, all right, this is a place to be, because it's going to be a place where I can start expressing myself in the way I want to express myself, not how other business advisors have told me to think about business. And so that's where I'm at the moment, is like, was trying to describe correctly the transformation, because I think ultimately a community, well, one of the aspects of particularly a membership-based community that's really important to think about, I think, is the transformation. What transformation are you trying to create? And for us, we are doing transformation of basically how to get more ease, freedom, and confidence in business, and peace, in a sense. How can we align, make money, do good, be happy? How can we build businesses that feel more connected to ourselves rather than us burning out from just working for the man, or building businesses that don't suit us?
Yeah.
And that's ultimately, and whether you do that one-to-one with us coaching, as a group program, or on your own with the online community, that's the change.
Yeah.
So I think that's a long-winded way for me to answer your question, basically.
Yeah, no, it's helpful. And because I kind of think about it sort of less, I think, via the lens of what we teach on the course. Actually, the usefulness for me in this is actually an opportunity to think about then my own community on the meditation side, and thinking about that. And I think a sort of similar thing like you, actually, the thing that makes it safe for people to step in is the promise that, you can meditate together, but meditate at home. And so the kind of idea of kind of teaching where you are. And so that is a kind of reason to transact. It's a reason to step into the group. But then clearly, in a similar kind of way, actually what they then stay for is the journey that you're on as you are sort of learning to meditate and deepening the practice, which is then a kind of much bigger sort of transformative journey, a much bigger sort of transformative thing. But of course, exactly in the same kind of way, it's difficult, finding the best way of kind of pointing to that, but allowing the first invitation, the first step that makes it feel kind of safe and appropriate for people to come in. Like in your case, oh yes, I can come because I can learn about things around business. I can learn about marketing. I can learn about pricing. I can learn about how to think about sort of startup, whatever it might be. That's the kind of invitation which makes it safe to step in.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of feels like an important thing. There needs to be an invitation that makes it safe for people to step in, and then kind of understanding that actually it is the bigger outcome, the bigger transformation that actually is the thing that people want, and the kind of sort of safety of the group.
Yeah, and it reminds me of a quote. I think that the heart, it's up to the heart to decide and the head to make it happen.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And in a sense, the flip for me is like, we are attracted, and I think I've seen this for a few people who joined recently. It's like they've just been attracted by the language. They're not 100% sure what they're going to get out of it. There's something around business, but it's about the language and the values. And the work that I think we need to do now more is just give them that justification at the head level. So, okay, well, there's that course, there's this thing there, there's that offering, there's this event. These are the things that you can do now. You're in. So there's a kind of like, that's the path that I can follow in terms of this journey of transformation. With the meditation thing, the thing that springs to mind, there's this deeper transformation that's going on that I feel is a kind of a longer arc.
Yeah.
That on your own is super challenging.
Yeah.
Unless your name is Buddha.
Yeah. And he's already got that.
But as a group, it can be a lot less challenging because, and it's the same with like gyms and all that stuff. But do it together, then you're more likely to stick with it. The thing that I was curious about before was this idea of that story around by giving, by paying, that is part of the learning and the transformation. Yeah. And that's a really interesting, very subtle, but I think once you get it, it's like, oh my God. Even though I was thinking, I relate it to us and talking about how pricing, like how we spend money is going to affect how we receive money.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because if we're not conscious about why we spend, then we're going to be potentially unconscious about how we ask for it. And so there's a real interesting aspect there about that even the transaction, the payment was a lesson in a sense.
Yeah. And the thing that's interesting around that is, yes, absolutely, how we spend money affects how we receive money, but also when we're talking to the community via the means, whatever means we use for that, actually there is a truth that, when we offer something for free, we get a level of engagement. When people are paying, you get a completely different level of engagement. And it's important, I think, to keep that in mind, because whatever the outcome, whatever the change, whatever the transformation that being part of you kind of facilitates, actually knowing that when people make an investment in that, they are invested in it, and the way we kind of talk about that, the making an investment is a financial thing. But then once they, that might be the thing which kind of pulls themselves over their line, then they're invested. Then they want to be, then all of their energy or more of their energy comes to it. And so actually, taking this back to the kind of price, the money, it is really important actually, because you're talking about a level of commitment. You're talking about a level of interest. You're talking about how invested people are. And so, money is an important part of that.
I think that's a really good point to really underline, I think, for people who are selling community. The aphorism that sprang to mind when you're talking was, people pay attention to what they pay for.
Right, yeah.
And so if you feel a bit, I don't think I should charge this much, even us, we were thinking about raising the prices of the community. If you're just doing it for the sake of increasing profit, fine. It's, it can be a bit challenging if you actually, at the heart of it, is really about this transformation aspect. Thinking there is like, what commitment do you need people to make in order for them to actually do the work and actually to turn up, and particularly in community, to turn up, to engage, to start using and taking advantage of the offers that you have. Because if they pay very little, they'll forget.
Yeah,
you sat there and it actually doesn't do your community any good, because they're not engaging, even though they're giving you a little bit of money, but they're not truly invested. I found the people in our community who are most engaged, who are taking part most, are the ones who are paying the most.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And then we're talking about £2,500 because of the 2020 Vision program, and they are also part of the community, and they are turning up to lots of the stuff we do.
Yeah.
And some would pay people say, "Oh, yeah, because they want to get value for money." I don't think so. I think it's they're just more clear about what they want.
They're heavily invested.
Yeah,
they are heavily invested. And look, they're not financially invested. No. They are fully there. It's like, I am in this with all of the sort of blood and guts of my being. This is I'm in this. I'm part of this. And exactly. That made them comfortable. That made them feel like they did need to spend that amount of money. But that is a secondary thing. Let's say it's not like, shit, I've spent the money, therefore I need to. It's like, I'm only spending the money because I have that level of investment, that level of commitment, that level of interest.
Yeah. And this is where I think, when you're thinking about launching community, or even thinking about your communities, and this is a journey we're on as well, is really being clear about that journey of transformation. That real transition that you're trying to help people make, so that they know why they're there, and you know what you need to offer for them to get there. And so then it becomes a case of, all right, when you're thinking about that number, it's understanding what levels of challenges or what good feelings and solutions, and at what speed are they looking for this stuff. And so, we talked to that on the course. So this whole, the thing you call it the 5 T's. I'm using that. Maybe it's not 100% applicable to this, but I feel that there is a level of like, do you want to do it by yourself, or do you want to do it in a group, or do you want to do it one-to-one? Do you want to do it in a year? Do you not care how long you do it? Do you want to do it? You love just doing things on your own, and so that's the important thing for you, or you always need guidance because you hate, you need structure. Asking those questions, I think, of your community starts to help you, give you a clearer picture of how you can offer different ways to engage with you, rather than having a single price. This is what it costs. Come join us. And like you said, that's nearly as challenging as having a blank page. Yeah.
And I guess the other thing with that, just one of the other things, linking it back again to some of the stuff on the course, like you said there, those 5 T's, which informs how you might divide up options. But even coming back, a stage or two from that, thinking, what actually, what are the community members' motivations? What is their intent? What is the things that they're sort of trying to get? And the more that you do understand that, even if that means you start by speaking to 10 people to really just explore their motivation, really explore their intent, really try and understand the journey that they're on. From those 10 people, using a kind of questions approach, using that open approach, you will start to kind of crack open the what's kind of going on in here or in here. You build up that kind of picture, and that gives you some hypotheses to test, essentially, some ideas to test, and you can find a way then to, having actually spoken to 10 people, which is relatively easy to do, then kind of test those hypotheses, test that hypothesis, those ideas more broadly with, say, 100 people, if you have access to those people. And so what you're doing, whilst the word that comes to my head, I'm reluctant to use, but will use, you are kind of building up this idea of a kind of persona. Who is this idea? Like in your case, who is that person? Who is so invested that they're willing, that they're all in, and that they're being all in means that they're like this. And for sure, in some respects, you learn that by doing, but also there is an opportunity to be a bit intentional about that and to sort of explore that a little bit, and to be a bit kind of formal about that process. But yeah, it's, this idea of kind of using questions to really get into people's motivations, to really get into the intent that is important to them. It will help you kind of build this picture of what actually moves the people you want to serve, or what moves the people who you want to commune with.
Yeah, that's vitally important, because it's around the stories you start to tell. If you want to amplify essentially your marketing, if you're on your own or a small team, you can't be talking to everyone. You can be, but it'll take a lot of time, and you can't be selling one-to-one. And so at some point there are some clear stories that you need to be able to tell. And it made me think of, there's a guy called Ian Livingstone who started the Choose Your Own Adventure books.
Right.
He started those years ago, decades ago. I can remember. I used to love them. And for those of you who don't remember those books, essentially each page is like, you say, you're in a dark forest, and there's two paths. You take the left path or the right path, and then you choose. And then if you take the left path, you maybe get to a cave. If you take the right path, you go to a mountain, and it continues that. I kind of think of that. If you think of that in terms of the journey of a community member, there's multiple paths in it, and in a sense, your job as someone who's potentially trying to create transformation within that community is finding which are the most well-walked paths, and maybe designing for those. And through those questions, and through talking to your community, talking to people who want to join your community about where they want to go, what's getting in their way, what are the steps they would think they should follow, what are the hurdles that they'll encounter. You kind of, while there are infinite number of possibilities, I think as a person, as a founder of the community, your job is to find out which are the well-followed paths, which are the most common obstacles, so that you can, even though there's like some decisions going along the way where you might go left or you might go right, more often than not, they're going to take a left turn here and a right turn there. And when they get there, they're going to need help with a certain thing. And I think to get to that is a bit of a challenge. It will take a lot of time of building and learning along the way. But I think if you have a community at the moment, one thing that I think, sort of like following what you said, is at least speak to 5, maybe 10 people, but speak to 5 people and have open-ended conversations. And I believe by the end of those conversations, you might even have a list of topics, of things that you think are quite important. And then with that, then try maybe do something like a survey. Some people just jump straight into the survey and assume what the answers are. That feels like a bit of hit and miss. I believe if you can have a few conversations first, hone down on some real key topics, and then from there, go a bit wider. And then the other aspect that I quite like about the survey approach is also have some kind of open-ended answer as well as multiple choice. So make it easy to answer first. Multiple choice, tell us a bit more, anything. And then if you want to talk more, if you're happy to talk more, give us your mobile number. Because if they give you their mobile number, they're invested in something.
Yeah.
They want to talk more. And then you know who to talk to and who to listen to, maybe, based on what they put in the long stream of consciousness and whether they've engaged with a number or email. I think a number would be interesting because that's real. That's real wanting to talk rather than email, like sending an email.
And the thing that I'd add to that is coming back to the money stories thing, I think in many instances our habit would be, or our tendency would be, to not bring the money up early. Like, I'm just going to I'll talk about all the other stuff because I'm kind of happier and more comfortable with that, and I don't start talking about money, because at some point the conversation is going to need to go around to money, and it's not that it's a kind of well, I guess the thing that's kind of important is we need to remember whenever anybody is buying anything, there is always a range of choice, right? So it might be, it might appear like a direct choice. Oh, I could join the happy startup community, or I could join the happy new business community, which sort of says it does the same kind of thing. But actually, it's never really that kind of literal thing. It's like, well, I'm spending this on that, or I could spend a similar amount on something else. And actually, that's what people are competing with. That's what your community members are. There's always a choice they're making, and it might, like I said, might be a kind of what appears to be a like-for-like comparison, but more often than not, it's something quite kind of different. It's and I think part of the task in the questions is to explore what else they spend money on. Not that you need to kind of be anchored to that, but people spend money on online subscriptions, on magazine subscriptions, on holidays, on spa days, or whatever, all of these things, which might be things which actually they're spending that money to get an effect, to get an outcome, to get a change, which you also can provide. And so that's why kind of understanding what else they spend money on, understanding their sensitivity around those decisions, how they feel about those decisions, will also start to point to some of the play points that you can play around with when you start experimenting with money and pricing your community too.
Exactly. And it's quite interesting, like talking specifically to that with us, like I have a strong feeling that most of the people who've joined us, they have in the past paid for some kind of coaching.
Yeah.
So and so for us, that's a signal. Okay, all right, there's someone who invests in this kind of work. And so doing that conversation, understanding what other people, what they pay for, other than just the thing that you want to offer them.
Yeah.
Starts to paint a picture is also whether they're the right person for you. Whether are they more likely to invest money in something like this, or pay for this product, or pay for this community, as opposed to actually I've never done this before, so it's a bit scary. So I might not dive into here quite yet, or it might take a bit more time to investigate or to help them understand the value.
Yeah.
So yes, well, we've been a bit of a roundabout that way of hopefully communicating at least connecting with the idea that it is challenging to price community. It isn't a straightforward thing, but actually I that's a bit too simplistic. It's challenging to price anything almost.
Yeah. And it's challenging to sell anything. That is true for everything.
Exactly. And it is, like you always say, it's fraught with danger, it's fraught with risk from the perspective of the seller. And I think hopefully if there's anything we communicated here is like your job as community leader, community founder, is to make that choice as easy and as non-scary and as clear and as simple and as self-affirming as possible. And so thinking at it that way rather than purely let's see how long my landing page can be jam-packed with features, and thinking purely about volume of content rather than quality of feeling. How does that content make that person feel when it comes to make a decision? Yeah. Cool. Awesome. Any final thoughts?
No, I think there's a couple of things which just are sort of most resonant for me. The reminder about the heart and the head, actually deciding with my heart, rationalizing with my head, and so needing to talk to both of those aspects whenever you are talking to your community. And then the other thing, just this importance of how invested people are, and remembering, actually for many people that they are really heavily, that they express the level of their super investedness in you is about the opportunity to spend money. So don't deny them that opportunity.
Yeah. Awesome. I think I'd like to end it. It isn't about you. It's never about you. It's maybe about the story you're telling. It's maybe about the timing of the conversation you're having. It might be about the situation of the person you're talking to, but it's never about you. So I just want to emphasize that, because that hopefully will free us up to just try more things, to have more conversations, to experiment. Like we say in the course, it is about experimentation. We don't have a silver bullet to say, charge this amount of money and you'll be fine.
Yeah,
it is really about, because we're dealing with human beings who have so many different motivations and challenges that we can't. We're not machines that you just say, that's it, turn that key and you're done.
Yeah.
And anyone who does sell you that, I just question it a little bit. Cool. Thank you, Ben. We would love, well, we have loads of things that we'd like to talk about, but for those of you who are watching now, either live or on the recording, please click on the button on the middle of your screen. It's a little questionnaire just asking what topics you'd like us to talk about, or if you have any questions that you'd like us to dive deeper on. We're here to help and to learn. This is a two-way thing. The more we hear from you, the more we can make not only these webinars more useful for you, but it also helps us design the course and make that more powerful and useful. So there's an ulterior motive here, as well as trying to help, but we're trying to do this together. So if you are really in that mindset of pricing more authentically, more confidently, getting more ease in your business, join us every fortnight. Ask your questions. Please try and send something through in terms of a topic that you'd like us to talk about. And yeah, we'd love to have more conversations like this. Brilliant. Have a great rest of the day. Enjoy the sun.
I will. You too.
And you, Michelle, enjoy the sun. Maybe bump into you in Brighton at some point. And for the rest of you, have a great rest of the week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.